Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3 with Black Ice 9.11, and of course we're playing as Japan. So we are still in the recovery from the victory process. Let's look over here, and they're attacking, and we're still losing some U-boats and things. Now, okay, we're still waiting for these guys to load. We also need to reorganize, but yeah. Won't do it right now. Slow things up a bit too much, maybe. Good, we've cleaned out the Brits from there. Uh-oh, you lost supplies. We are bringing in supplies, are we not? Yes. Okay, both the ports in this section are bringing in supplies. That one's for that section. Okay. Just they're not getting there through the jungle yet. Okay, yeah, we lost these provinces up here. Okay, amphibious invasion tactics have advanced. Very good. We'll stop that. Now we can do assault ship flotillas. Yes, we want those. We have one of those, but we could use some more. Maybe with better range for other invasions. And yes, I was reminded that what is this? Sitka A2. Well, there's a bunch of different islands up there. We should see about taking that to take away the port from the Americans. And we are, but our next sort of major, we're still recovering, and by some of that I mean just because if ship gets in combat and it has some organization levels, it'll more likely lose some organization before it starts, you know, getting sunk completely, kind of thing. And so we're waiting for some of these guys here, even though, well, there's been those sort of marauding British ships that we want to deal with. So I want to get those. I know we could try to send some of these guys, but even these guys are starting to get better. Oh, well, you can stop your attacks. So the Philippines is the next big thing, because I feel if I take that down, because I think the British that are operating up in here may be basing out of the Philippines, but probably more likely basing out of here and here, that we want to take down some of these ports, because I know they were actually in this base for a while right there. And so we want to take those out, but we want to make sure that this is still sort of, shall we say, in the heart. Why did the Japanese attack America in December 7th, etc.? And I don't know if we've ever, and I recently read, the Nimitz biography and several other books on the Pacific War, and I don't know if I can't remember going through reading, and I say reading, some of the stuff I did read, others I listened to the audio book, because my other sort of real job, a good portion of it allows me to do the job, and I can just listen to audiobooks in my headphones. So so when I say read, it's audiobooks, but I think that would have stood out if I had a clear, this is what Tojo or some foreign ministries, their analysis paper was X. Okay. Because I've not yet I mean, so I'm surmising. I've not yet had a clear, this is it, why the Japanese attacked the U.S. I think it is that they thought that if they went to war with Britain, primarily over the Dutch colonies, because that was their main thing, was the oil here in Borneo. That was the most critical, but we also have, you know, I think some steel down here that, well, they were getting a fair amount of steel coming from Manchukuo. And I'm not saying it's enough. They were trying to import it like mad from the U.S. before the embargo and things like that. So it's not enough, but I don't know that steel, you know, go to war with America to get steel is, you know, I mean, that's sort of the insane thing, because even if the U.S. is willing to sign a peace agreement with you, I don't think even the Japanese could be nutty enough to think that, well, I don't know. Did they really think that obviously that we weren't going to give them steel, but would part of the peace settlement and the war meaning that they get to trade, you know, enforce trade? I don't know. I think it was more about territory. So why, you know, and some of these rare materials are metal-like things in the game. Some of them are, you know, things like rubber, which rubber here in this game is just this, you know, a strategic resource, and not a like it is in Hearts of Iron 4, not a particular needed, that's what I think a lot of this rubber is. I don't think is a particular needed, well, it is not a particular needed resource to build something like it is in the other. And I don't know for sure whether this, because if you notice here it says metal, it doesn't say steel, and we're getting a little bit from there, and we're getting none from here because of revolt risk that we still need to bring down more, and I still need to do more of that. Don't know why with it green do we still have such a heavy revolt risk. 19%. Don't understand that. Okay, because I'm seeing obviously no revolt risk here. I don't get that. Okay, don't get that. But and it does say metal and not steel, and I think some of this may be copper or other useful metals, as well as just iron, obviously, you know. But there are metal resources and things here. I don't know exactly where and if this is enough, but this was their goal, obviously. And I think they would have, if they thought they could have just gotten the Dutch resources, they would have. And as I'm thinking about this, I don't know, did the Japanese ever really try to do a deal with the Dutch? I don't know. I'm following on Twitter a really nice Twitter account, or several of them. One is The War in Asia, and it's sort of going day by day with really cool tweets. I don't, all my attempts to sort of casually, you know, interact with the person who's doing it have always come back with no interaction. So I, you know, just saying, oh, thanks for the good tweets or something. I've never gotten like you know, an acknowledgement back. But so I don't know all of his sources, but it's good sources. So I've been collecting a lot of information including about Japan's diplomatic activities, and including different attempts that Japan tried to do peace agreements with China, you know, historically. And so I don't know if they ever really tried to do a good deal with the Dutch, because You know, the Dutch had lost their, you know, homelands. Now, a lot of their navy was, and as I was reminded, how I was asking, why did the Dutch have some, you know, mountain units? Because I've been to the Netherlands. It's flat. There's no mountains. Not at all. You know. Some areas that I think here are swamp a bit more because they're sort of presuming they're being flooded. I think. But maybe they're enough swampy naturally, I don't know. But, and yeah, there's some foresty type things there, you know, so yeah, and then a lot of open terrain. But then I was reminded, oh, well, you got the Dutch East Indies and all kinds of crazy mountains out here, and you go, oh, yep, that's right. So a lot of what the Dutch military was looking at was dealing with, you know, here. So there was a lot of Dutch military left over here that was some of their more, shall we say, professional military, because this is where they thought it was going to be exercised on an ongoing daily basis. They needed ships because, hey, there's still pirates out here, and you needed, you know, this is still the, you know, the world. You know, you needed cruisers, you needed destroyers, not just, you know, a few peacekeeping Coast Guard type boats, you know. So, you know, they had a real navy then. And this was why. And this also provided lots of revenue and income to afford the real navy. So it's sort of a vicious circle. But, okay. So did the Japanese ever come with a good deal? Not a good deal that you give up your territory, because the Dutch, after losing their homeland, started using this to springboard to try to regain their homeland, fighting alongside the British. Obviously, they can't defeat Germany on their own, but as an ally of the British, they can come up with stuff. And if you were looking at it long term, and if you're looking at it without Japan entering the Pacific War, you know, just Japan just continues its war with China, shall we say, is all that it's doing. I don't know, and I don't know if there was much, but I presume you should be able to recruit local native units that the Dutch could train up. Now, I know the Dutch may, because I can't remember them doing any of this, and they may have been very worried about the idea that if you train up locals, they either as a unit may rebel, or as you know, veterans after they're, you know, let out of their service may decide to, you know, rebel, and so they may see it as a dangerous thing, arming the locals. But if you were the Dutch government in exile, what would you rather have? The Dutch East Indies or your homeland back? So maybe it would be good to, you know, train what in essence may be mercenaries, but you know, because there's different tribes, different ethnic groups within all of this. You know, but train up some units of some stuff, so you're not just looking at the, you know, the European Dutch population. You could probably get some more recruits, and you're supplying the war machine, helping out Britain, and so you can, I think, materially contribute in the long run to defeating Germany. Okay, I think you can. So what could the Japanese have offered? They could have gone, hey, you sell us oil and other resources, we'll give you money, and that will allow you to now maybe the oil is a zero-sum game in that Britain needed it for Britain's war effort, and so it's not, you know, but America was in there, and America was doing it too, so, you know, giving oil. America had enough oil to supply the Allied effort. And it could increase its drilling and increase its oil production if it needed to, and increase its refining capacity if it needed to supply all of the Allied efforts. Alone, the U.S. could do that. Not saying that other already developed oil fields weren't useful, and in some cases, because of some of the refineries, they were already sort of in remote parts of the world, so they were useful to have it locally. So I'm not saying that there wasn't utility or usefulness in other contributions to, to the oil effort. But so I don't know that it was a zero-sum game, but I could easily see that, because I know that the Americans had provided some Brewster Buffaloes to the Netherlands, and I don't know whether those were bought by the Dutch government in exile, or if they were some sort of Lend-Lease type thing, or just some sort of gift, because by that time the Brewster Buffalo was not really, because this was late 41, was not really planned to be used by the U.S. Air Force or Navy. And I'm still sort of a bit of a fan of the Brewster Buffalo, and it's definitely, for its time, an inferior fighter, but it is not a bad fighter. And like I've said before, some of the stuff that when the British were trying to use them in, I think it was Burma, they were trying to dogfight the Zero in sort of the World War I style, and it just didn't, and the Zeros just destroyed them. Where if they tried more of the Thatch Weave or some of the Chenault type tactics, I think it could have done much better. And it's not so much that, oh, they're so great. No, it just, there's something that they had and was in production and was useful. And had you used better tactics with them, they would have, like say, been useful, maybe still losing, but shooting down enough of the enemy. And now, yeah, I know you're losing pilots, which one is losing a cog, a pilot, and two, a human life. I mean, it's both of those things. But as a cog, as in like a good trained pilot, you're losing, which is not a good thing, but also just, if you will, say, oh, you want to go this way here to here? Okay. Is that okay? Well, let's go here to here to here. So the, a good trained pilot takes a while to produce. So sure, you're losing them, but I sort of look at it as an aircraft to use today, while they're building the, getting ready to get the P-51 Mustang. Because when the P-51 Mustang first comes out, it's not that good either, because it doesn't have that great of an engine in it. It's an all right aircraft, but it's not quite the performer that it becomes once, I guess it's the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine. They make them in America, but designed or whatever that gets into them. Sorry, I'm not good on the details of all of the. We'll stop all of these so they can get some rest, because they're now retreating and won the battle, and so that's achieved the goal. So it's a good aircraft as a stopgap type measure for that time, and even after that, is which they continued for a long time using the P-40, the Tomahawk, or whatever you want to call it. The aircraft of the Flying Tigers in secondary fronts. Excuse me. There's a little bit of hiccup. I look at kind of the idea of Air Force for India. Okay, you're actively have your sort of frontline stuff fighting the Japanese, but an Air Force infrastructure that's not just a training aircraft, but it is also a if things go wrong aircraft, or if, hey, there's a carrier group moving through here, let's we got some aircraft over here, that are in this part of the world. All the good ones are here or been moved, flying over the hump and getting into China and engaging the enemy. You got some aircraft back over here, whether they're the P-40s or the Brewster Buffaloes or something like that are back here, that are additional aircraft squadrons that if you, for some reason, let's, again, because I also work with these games and whatever, theory versus what actually happened. What if the Japanese ups their game and comes out with a better Zero, or floods the zone with twice as many zeros in an area and overwhelms them. Well, to replace losses, because presumably they're still, the Japanese are still taking losses, and if you can just put just good enough aircraft in it to sort of balance things out, you can maintain control. Or, like I say, is all of a sudden a carrier group shows up here for a raid, you have something up here to engage them. Not the best thing, and you hope it doesn't happen. But so it's that, but also it is a training aircraft in the idea, not training basic pilots how to fly, but training up an organization, a squadron, how they interact and how they do stuff, and get that sort of going as a unit that then, oh, hey, you've been doing this for 3 months, 6 months, a year, I don't know. You're looking pretty good. Let's give you some brand new P-51 Mustangs and give you a few weeks to get, how to fly the better aircraft, and then we're taking you off to the front lines to fight the Japanese and the other fighter squadron that's been out there and not the front for a long time and has gotten malaria, and the pilots are sort of out of shape and need a break. And okay, well, let's take that group back. And okay, instead of just, they're not like completely need home rest or completely whatever, but, let's put them in the older aircraft and they can just sort of hang out here and rebuild them and send some of the pilots off to be, instructors, and send some of the fresh new pilots, instead of putting them straight into the meat grinder of the war, put them in with the old sort of veterans here, and they train up a new squad, in essence, a new squadron with the same number, the, squadron number and the same thing, but, it's getting them back going, sort of squadron rotation, that kind of thing. So I look at these other lesser model aircraft as still useful. And I look at, well, for Japan, fighting in China, and even something like the Brewster Buffalo late in the war. They still got machine guns on them. You can, maybe not good ones, but you can mount some hard points on them and put some light bombs on them, and they can be ground attack aircraft. They don't, Zeros will kill them. Yeah, but Zeros will kill a lot of other ground attack aircraft too. They're still a useful tool in striking the enemy, because machine gun strafing, dropping a few light bombs, is very useful. And so, yeah, things like that could be useful. So, but, so I know that the Dutch were trying to arm and improve themselves, one, to be able to hold the Dutch East Indies, but also to contribute to freeing their homeland. So Japan could have really offered them things, money that they could have then, say, bought machinery from the U.S. to build arms, whether they're building fighter aircraft or maybe just building munitions, building bombs that could be, built in a factory here and shipped to, well, maybe not to Britain, but shipped to, North Africa, the Mediterranean theater, or something like that, and use the labor from the native population in the factories. So, yeah, I don't know, now I know it's sort of the evil empire, the bad guys that you're dealing with, but I don't know if the Japanese ever came with a sweetheart deal to, like, hey, you sell us oil and other things, we'll give you lots and lots of money, or other useful material things. I don't think that was in the Japanese mindset. Again, I don't have any good knowledge on this, and I'm sort of surmising. The Japanese mindset, particularly when, because right now Japan's been going through a very long economic slump, and it's still, my understanding, still sort of going on there. But Japan, industrially and economically, is so much stronger than it ever was with an empire. It is without an empire. People, governments, whatever you want to say, have come to understand that to be strong, you don't need an empire. You don't need to control everything. But you still, quite honestly, do need access to things like resources and whatnot. The U.S. is blessed in that we're big enough and we have enough resources that we, can sort of function our own, where Japan really doesn't have enough oil or whatnot. So, you know, but it's now stronger than it was as an empire, economically and other types of things. So, but they were, I think, once they got the various embargoes against them because of their actions in Japan, it sort of taught the Japanese that they had to secure under their control the resources. So as opposed to, you know, because otherwise people can control their behavior, can control them, and they don't want that. So I think there was a, you know, an ideological, if you will, or a viewpoint. Maybe it's just more of a viewpoint because of their, you know, experience in the world. Not so much like, oh, we have X ideology. It's more like, oh, well, because I got burnt when I touched that hot thing, I shouldn't touch the hot thing without, you know, with my just bare hands. I should use gloves or should use tongs or whatever. You know, it's more like the burnt hand. So it's more their view that they see, oh, we need an empire. Okay, so they need an empire. They need the resources to fight their war in China, to maintain a strong position against the rest of the world. Okay, I get that. And so they think they need to get the Dutch East Indies to get that empire. So I think that's the key. Because sure, the British territories are damned useful, but I think everything critical that they need, I mean, because yes, there is some oil up here and whatnot, but I think everything critical they need, they can get in the Dutch East Indies. Yeah, so if they were to, and that I think they knew that unlike the French in Indochina under the Vichy government, and since the Dutch government went into exile, which the French government doesn't go into exile, the French government stays. You know, I mean, there are people that go form a French exile government, but don't go into the official government doesn't go into exile. That these people will fight for it. Meaning they can't just come in and peacefully occupy it like basically they do in Indochina. So they have to come in and take this. And probably the British are going to resist. They realize that, or know that from agreements and understanding. Now, does that mean the U.S. is going to intervene? I don't think it does. Now, maybe... now, I think it could have. See, there's a big difference in my mind between it will do so versus it won't do so. There's a big difference between those two, and there's a big gray area. It may. Okay? It may. Japan attacking the British in Malaya may be the straw that breaks the camel's back, or some such thing. And so I know they didn't have polling data or whatever on the Americans because they just didn't do that stuff that much back then. But there may be something that breaks the camel's, you know, the straw that breaks the camel's back that gets America into the war. And it very well may have been led to the war. I'm not even going to put like a percentage chance one way or another on whether I think America would have gone into the war over this. FDR is definitely looking like he wants to enter the war. And if you're at war with the British, you know, Germany's at war with the British here, and somebody else is at war with the British, and America comes in on Britain's side, you're going to be at war with the Americans, meaning this isn't going to be a separate war. So I think, again, goes back to the thing is I don't know. Well, I've talked earlier in this series about the craziness of the Japanese is we can't continue fighting the war. We're exhausted from the war. Oh, well, let's pick on everybody else in the world and fight not just the Chinese, but everybody. Well, not the Germans or the Italians, but everybody else. And, well, we won't try to get Russia in there, but we're going to attack the people allied with Russia. So Russia may attack us too. Yeah. Yeah, because we can't maintain our own war effort. We're going to take on everybody. Yeah. Okay, see, that's the craziness of Japanese situation. Okay. And yeah, I know people, and why Japan felt it needed to do these things, and we've been talking about just that, to get the resources that it thinks it can unlock and then be able to continue to fight its war. Okay, so it thinks it can get the resources, it can unlock, unlock the achievements or whatever, and then it can continue to fight the war. And it also thinks it's going to be a more limited war. It wasn't in Japan's mind, at least at the start, whether there was going to be British territories somewhere in the Pacific. Australia and New Zealand were definitely seen by the Japanese as British territories. Yes, the Japanese understood that they had their own parliaments and their own governments, but they were part of the British Empire. Now, whether Britain was going to get to keep a Hong Kong or get to keep a Malaya or not, I don't know. But not everything was going to disappear that was British in Japan's initial. They wanted a war, they wanted to take some territory, and then they wanted a peace settlement, one with America and two with the other European powers. And they were very much willing to give up gains that they got to get a favorable peace. What does that mean? Does that mean, okay, we'll give you back Malaya and Singapore, but we get to keep, the British Borneo territories, kind of thing, Hong Kong really is quite honestly a very minor thing. Yeah, we'll give you back Hong Kong to just a freaking little island in the new territories, because Japan does want trade with the rest of the world, so having a trading island here could very much be seen as a positive thing. But, there's going to now be Japanese, shall we say, tariffs and restrictions, and shall we say, getting a cut of everything sold into or out of China, a percent deal. They'll be through a tariff, they'll get a 5% of everything sold, everything sold in China, and 5% of everything exported out of China. And sure, you can have your Hong Kong, but we still get the 5% deal of everything in and out. I can see that, as part of the agreement, because they're now part of the agreement to get them back Hong Kong, is that Britain or whoever acknowledges that China is now in Japan's sphere of influence, and so you will let us deal with the nationalist government here, and we'll set up our own reorganized nationalist government, and we'll get our cut of the deal. That is what I think types of things Japan is wanting. They were not like Hitler and the Soviet Union, sort of a zero-sum game. Either it's Germany or it's the Soviets, and even if we allow the Soviets, it's massive, massive amounts of territory. I don't even know whether Hitler was anywhere in the mind to leave any sort of rump state to have Moscow. But even if it did have Moscow, it certainly probably wasn't going to have Leningrad, and the border was probably going to be, down along here. If Stalin at some point came, okay, I'll call it quits. Here's this border, somewhere like, Finland, Finland gets to become Greater Finland. It can have the Kola Peninsula here, and Germany gets to have Leningrad. You can rename it St. Petersburg if you want to. And the border is going to be, I don't know however many miles this is from Moscow, but that's our western border. And it's sort of the Don River here is our territory, and yeah, you get to have the Ukraine and Crimea and whatever. And maybe Hitler would have gone, okay, because in 30 or 50 or years or whatever, round two, after his death, is the way, because he definitely saw the idea of multi-generational, multi-expansion. He very much was looking at the U.S.'s expansion westward over the generations as what Germany was eventually going to do, but knew, and this is obviously a skewed map, meaning it's not accurate in size, but definitely saw the general multi-generational, as the German population expands, move east. I don't think he really wanted to end up in the end of World War II with owning Vladivostok and having Germany to try to colonize it. Just, it's too big. He realizes that. But he wants to maybe bring down the Soviet Union. There's going to be some other Russian government or something, but it is still sort of to some degree a zero-sum game, but it may not be a binary choice, Germany or Russia. We'll term it that. And that Hitler would be greatly pleased with a general, oh, okay, yeah, okay, this is the end of the war. And yeah, we'll let Russian officials hang out here so long as they're moving Russian peoples out, because I think he would have been very happy with the idea of he is different than some of his other people. I think Himmler sort of wanted to have the Germans as sort of a overlord race, but I think Hitler would have been, if there was a, shall we say, Russian nationalist type government that comes in, goes, but our Russian people, yeah, okay, you got a few years. As long as you keep moving people out in large batches as you build houses and as you get them at, as long as you keep actively, moving people eastward, you can sort of keep your hand in, we'll do joint, we're in charge, but you can have your people here, your administrators here too, and move people east. I think he would have been happy with that, or kind of solution, and the Russians would have just simply moved east, and the Germans would have moved in and taken over and expanded into Western Russia, or whatever you want to call it. I think he would have been happy with that, but that is much more of a zero-sum type game, where Japan wasn't really trying to play that much of a zero-sum game. So, was it that Japan thought the U.S. was going to come into the war? Or was it simply that they might come into the war, and having the Philippines was just a dagger to the supply chain? Because you can see, Bridge on the River Kwai movie, is fictionalized, and they didn't build everything out of bamboo, but they did build, they were using British prisoners and other prisoners to build a railway that was trying to go from Singapore to basically Korea, up and around. And there were definitely elements of it already in place, and they were trying to increase that. But Japan is also smart in knowing that seas, because it is a seaborne nation, sea trade is more efficient than rail trade ever will be. Okay, you can never build enough railway and have it fuel and time and whatever else to move large. You build a bullet train, well, okay, and you can move FedEx packages or something, maglev train or something fast enough maybe, but not enough to build. You're just never going to outdo sea trade. But maybe you could get enough critical resources coming overland. But so this was just seen as too much of a dagger at their throats of any sort of trade with their primary goal. I don't know. It may be just a combination of all of this. They thought the U.S. was going to be in it, but weren't sure. But if it was, this is just too much to allow. So we're going to start the war. So I think because that's, to me, again, it's more insanity. But because I know if they had been if Japan had done a better propagandistic job, and if they had very much avoided to try to attacking American assets, they very well may inevitably have gone to a war with the U.S. But I think they could have gone to a war with the U.S. in such a way that would have been too painful for the U.S. to win the war. Because I forget whether it was, I think it was Iwo Jima. But it sort of got out in the newspapers a little bit more than some of the other battles, just the casualty rates on one of these island attacks. Maybe it was Tarawa, or maybe it's both Tarawa and Iwo Jima, as I'm trying to remember. It's out in the paper. And the papers are questioning some of this stuff. And I think it was even Nimitz himself questioned whether Iwo Jima was worth it, the casualty rates. of how many people that were lost, Americans were lost in taking the island. Was it worth it? But when they did sort of look at all of the damaged aircraft that were bombing Japan that were landing on Iwo Jima, because Iwo Jima was just basically an emergency airstrip. The main ones were flying either from Saipan and or Guam, because that's where they're actually flying from here to Japan and flying back here. And if you had trouble, you landed at Iwo Jima. That the numbers of people saved, as well as downed aircraft out here that were saved, search and rescue were saved, downed aircraft out at sea, because some of the search and rescue, both aircraft and ships, were able to base out of and generally operate out of this area without the interference of Iwo Jima. They saved more lives than it cost to take it. I think there was a bit of analysis done that understood that by the end of the war. So Iwo Jima was worth taking in the number of American lives that it saved. But maybe it was Taro or some of the other things. It just sort of in the high casualty rates that had the U.S. not been so upset with Japan, Japan might have been able to inflict victories on the U.S. How am I saying? The U.S. The U.S. victories may be such high costs that the American people might have pushed for a end to the war with Japan had the U.S. started the war with Japan and coming in on the British side. But because the Japanese attack and the manner of the Japanese attack, a great majority of the American people, Japan just wasn't going to be able to inflict too high a cost. It might have brought down a particular admiral or general, which it never did. If MacArthur or Nimitz had too many casualties or something, they may call for his dismissal, whether it's that admiral or general's fault. That may be a thing, and he gets replaced. But there was no idea in the American popular mind that Japan was going to be crushed because they started it. So by allowing America to start the war, even if it clearly in the American people's minds that it was an entirely justifiable start of the war, that the U.S. was entirely justified in going in, they might have been able to inflict enough pain that Japan could have done a negotiated settlement of some sort. Whether that negotiated settlement would have left them with, Dutch East Indies or something, I don't know. But it might have left them with things like Korea and Taiwan and Manchukuo and, some of these islands out here, some of their empire, but maybe not ever China or whatnot. Just sort of some analysis, but let's continue. Okay, carrier anti-aircraft fire control. Very good. We want to come over here. I don't know if that is... Okay, grayed out. Good. And so we will continue this. Okay, that low infrastructure, so you guys keep moving into here. Well, we've got a little bit moving there, but mostly we're moving down into here, so that'll be a good pursuit, a good turning of their flanks. Oh, and we're here too. Okay, so we want to attack here and here and here and here. And yes, we'll even throw those guys in for the fun of it. And these guys get across the river because we want to be on the far side of that river. Yeah, it is. Still, if you're new here, because I know we do get new people in, it is my contention that Japan loses the Pacific War, which is in essence losing everything, on the day they attack Pearl Harbor. That is, they lose. They just lose then. Can you join in the fight there? Yeah, okay. No, we just want a ground strike. Yeah, that will help. Monsoon in full swing. And so once that happens, nothing the Japanese can do. You know, I mean, I guess you could... Uh-oh. More rebels everywhere. You know, oh, okay. These are now reports of the things that have already happened in that big sea battle. The Hornet is lost, the Enterprise is lost, the Ranger is lost. I remember some of these. Oklahoma, New York, and Nevada, and Colorado are lost. And rebels everywhere, okay. Yeah, oh, well, what if they got jet engine, you know, jet planes in large numbers? Well, okay, what if? Where am I? I have some, okay. Force units, I don't know whether they're really worth moving. You come up and then come back. And that wasn't on a resource-rich starting point. Do they need fuel? Maybe. Okay, you guys come up this way. You know, or, oh, well, what if they had nuclear weapons? Yeah, and what if, you know, space aliens showed up and helped them? Yeah, you know, something like that could have happened. But barring something completely implausible, impossible, Japan loses. Because remember, America, before the end of the war, builds 118 aircraft carriers. Oh, and all the aircraft to go on board them, too. And, you know, all the support vessels, too. Now, these aren't all the CVs. I don't want to make it out that they're all, you know, big carriers. A lot of them are CVEs. You know, they're sort of on big merchant vessel hulls kind of thing that they're putting small aircraft carriers on. Yeah, a bunch of them are fairly small, fairly inconsequential as aircraft carriers go. But, yeah, compare that to the number of how many Japan built? You know, and so you just, you can't really, if you look at the numbers, conceive that Japan somehow could have won. Okay, let's see here. USS Arkansas lost, and Arizona lost, and we've lost the... Or this was again earlier, I believe. Okay, naval organization until October 42. Okay, well. Yep. That was from that battle, I believe, because we haven't gotten any more recent reports. So it is just, like, inconceivable that Japan can win. Okay, good. You got your big, your stuff, and yes, you won. No, we are rebasing to here. Whatever these may be. Or maybe just a submarine? Manila to San Francisco. So yeah, they're still trying to supply. And yes, the Lanks Exington to Texas and the Tennessee. And new battle commander has entered the battlefield. Forward to victory. Officer recruitment down. Yeah, okay, 50% until again October 42. Sure. Which I think gives us a new battle commander somewhere. Yeah. Or is it in the production queue? Yes, it's in the production queue. So we'll move that to the top just because it'll probably get through faster that way. We are below my sort of 100 limit, so that's why we're actively building those 2 sets of convoys, and we're also there when we get the ICs for those, because we are not going to let it get below 100 without actively building more. Don't know if we're building enough, and we've been losing mostly because, and we're still recovering because I know that we checked before the start of this episode. Well, they're okay. They're attacking, and they're sitting there. They're okay. They're doing pretty well, but some of the places that they're still just repairing. They had been in much worse shape. Repairing from and other places. What are we moving through here? Oh hell! What the hell? What the hell? Okay, why the hell? This is... Okay, okay, so we need to now... What normally, okay, close. Okay, so now that we're manually doing it, Medan to Sasebo. Okay, cancel convoy. We own the Straits of Malacca now, people. You see, oh, come on, stop this damn convoy. Pennsylvania, Maryland, and California are lost. Okay, there we go. And yes, we can come through here now that we own everything but here, but we're going to own that fast. And in short, they can base out of here, or they can base out of other Indian ports, but that will be a lot fewer losses than freaking coming through their territory. And we have our own submarine out there operating to try to limit their abilities. We'll take away more. I know we're going to have losses, but so far we've had little or no losses on our South American stuff because, but partially, I think because we've taken these islands. And so if we are still, well, let's switch over to Navy here. We can see for sure. Yeah, no losses, at least not within the last week or so here. We're giving them some losses. We're giving them losses from there. Now if we take some losses in here, well, we need to keep these things supplied, so we have to do that. But we don't need them doing this to us here, taking that's what that one attack and this attack was. We don't need those losses. Here, well, maybe they'll readjust. But once we get that port, it will more effectively reduce their ability to hit these places, if not eliminate it. Okay. Guidance advance for torpedoes. And yes, stop that, and I presume also warhead fusing will be under here. Yes, so that will help all that stuff. Very good. And the Saratoga is lost. That's all coming from our great big naval battle. Okay. Yeah, let's continue here and here. Can you improve those models? Oh, come on. We'll come to there. Was that shipping that sort of blocked that? Okay, and you guys there and there. So yeah, we will take losses from our convoys. I'm accepting of that, but we need to do it. Convoys need to be done smartly and effectively. Okay. Let's put you on board. You on board. You on board. And can we get to here? Can we? Yes, we can. Okay. Pocket battleship, 2 heavy cruisers, a light AA cruiser, 2 light cruisers, 2 destroyer groups, or whatever they are. I'm still not sure whether those are supposed to be single destroyers or groups, but a bit weakened from some of the action, but still doing good. And the CAGs are doing well. So we're going to do this invasion. 3 divisions, 1 of them a Marine. That should get them ashore. And take that. Battle of Balapan. Yeah. Good. Okay. A little more remnant troops down there than I like. Well, you come to here. God, these guys are taking forever to get to there. Especially seeing how these guys are making it down to here. Already, is this? Yeah, I don't know why it's taking forever when this guy is. Okay, yeah, well. No. You come to here. You come to there. And I want to thank you for watching if you got to this far, and if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, and also if you hit the like button too, I would recommend that. That's got this far, you must like this kind of content. Tells YouTube you want to know more. And if you want, I hear a lot of other people doing it, you can ring that bell to get notifications. I don't push it that hard because quite honestly, there's only, I think, like 2 or 3 channels I even want notifications on, but I like to subscribe to lots of channels. So it depends on, you want notifications when things go out, and to jump on them you can hit that, you can ring that bell, reinforce YouTube that you really want to see the content. So I'm happy if you do. On that one I'm happy if you don't, but I'm not happy if you don't subscribe, because I really want you here more often, but you don't have to be here instantaneously. That's not the point. And of course, I really love hearing from you about any of the thoughts we've been talking about, or the gameplay, or anything. So thanks so much. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron.